don't even think about how feeding dead food to a person will affect their mood and their interest in living. When we think about the world and how toxic it is, we can get overwhelmed with how hopeless it is. It's, my daughter wanted to try beef jerky the other day, and I said, okay, I'm thinking that's pretty pure, right? It can be, but I look at the package, sugar, piles of salt, and it's so hard to find healthy food unless you become a regular visitor to the health food store, which can happen it can happen gradually over time. It started out I would just get a few items, now the whole cart is full. So approach everything with moderation. I know I deal with a lot of picky eaters, and they're saying, how can I get more nutrients into my child when they only eat 10, 12 things? So I suggested to them that they get seaweed, and strips of it, and put it in with their rice or their pasta when they're cooking, and boil it in. And then when the pasta is al dente, remove the seaweed, and all of the minerals from that seaweed have been leached into the pasta now, so it's more nutrient rich. So when I first heard about this, I thought, great idea. It took me about 6 months to buy the seaweed. I'm much further along now in all of this, but back then it took me about 6 months to buy the seaweed, and then about another 4 months to actually put it in with the pasta. But now I do it regularly, and I'm always thinking of ways to improve the nutrients in my food that I'm eating and serving to my family. Juicing is another really, really good way to get nutrients into a child or an adult. So people say, do you juice or do you make smoothies? You do both. We need the fiber that is in smoothies. We need the fiber. But we also need the nutrients that are in the juice. So the juice has no fiber, it's taken out, and it's loaded with vitamins and minerals that literally when you consume the juice, the vitamins and minerals don't need to be digested or broken down. They go directly into the bloodstream. And literally it's like an infusion. And it gets directly into the bloodstream. It will not be missed. Those vitamins and minerals will go into the body. So that is a great, great way to keep children sickness-free. And the kids, when they are part of the process, it makes a huge difference. If they are out in the garden in the summer picking vegetables along with you, just the way we used to do in the olden days, then they're like, well, I want to try this. I've just taken it out of the ground. And then you bring it into the house and they make juice with it. Well, I've got to see what this tastes like. And they love the sound of the juicer, especially if they've got their apron on with their name on it, or maybe there's music that they like playing in the background. But you make it part of an experience. So many kids now, I'm going to go back to one thing. When a parent is breastfeeding a baby, the baby's at the breast, there's such warmth and nurturance and love, and this is how they are receiving their food. Fast forward 10 years from then, and the baby's in the back, or the baby's a child, and they're in the back seat of the car, and the parent's handing them McDonald's and saying, eat, we've got to get to hockey, come on, right? How can we absorb the nutrients from that food in the way we did when we were at the breast? It's impossible. So when we can get the child as part of the cooking experience and literally setting the table. I mean, nowadays we're like, set a table? We don't have a set place to eat in our house. I mean, a lot of people tell me that, right? A lot of times a family doesn't sit down together for a meal. But part of receiving the nutrients of our food is to actually be enjoying the experience and being with our loved ones. Even saying a blessing beforehand helps us enjoy our food more, receive the nutrients first, and it has us pause. Because we're rushing and sitting down and eating, we can't necessarily digest our food properly. But if we are sitting, having a blessing for a few minutes, it helps us normalize our heart rate, and then our digestive system works better, and we're able to digest our food better and absorb the nutrients. What else can we do to help our children be part of the whole cooking process and enjoy their food? They can be at the grocery store with us, choosing what they want. Instead of us saying, well, I don't really want to get broccoli, I don't like broccoli, don't put our restrictions on our children, right? Think about, well, maybe they like broccoli, and open up your mind to all the possibilities for your child. I don't like Brussels sprouts, but my girls love Brussels sprouts. But I didn't actually learn that on my own. They had them elsewhere and they loved them, and I thought, okay, I better start buying them Brussels sprouts. There are so many varieties of food available to us today, but we end up eating the same foods over and over again. And when we eat the same foods over and over again, we actually can become sensitive to them. So what happens is, say we're eating cheese every day or dairy, which is the typical North American diet. Every time we eat that cheese, it calls upon a certain set of digestive enzymes to digest that cheese. If we're always using those same enzymes to digest a food, those enzymes can wear out if our digestive system's not strong. And then we become sensitive to the food, and we start getting a symptom when we have the food. If we don't get on top of that sensitivity to the food, it can turn into an allergy. Nowadays, parents say to me, nobody used to have allergies. Why are all these kids having allergies? We're eating the same foods over and over again. The foods are not nutrient rich, so we're not even properly absorbing the vitamins and minerals in the food, nor does the food have as many vitamins and minerals. And the bodies that come into this world are not as healthy as the bodies that used to come into this world. What I mean is, a baby that's born is not as strong in their digestive system as they were in the past. This is why sometimes we see kids reacting to vaccinations. Sometimes, not always. Because their digestive system or immune system is weaker than those of prior generations of the same age. So parents will say, well, what you're saying is, grandparents will say to me, well, you're saying that everything I did was wrong. And I say, no, what you did was right. It's just the world is more toxic now, so we have to do things differently. I was actually, when I was feeding my daughter really differently, my in-laws said to me, you're going to stunt her growth. You're not giving her dairy, you're not giving her wheat, you're going to stunt her growth. Well, what was wonderful is she's 5'10.5", and she has been since she was 12. Good and strong and good at sports. So obviously I did not stunt her growth in any way. But that older generation is it's so ingrained in them that they've got to have dairy and wheat. They've got to have the typical things. But dairy and wheat are not as pure as they once were. It was when World War II occurred that we started pasteurizing the milk. Prior to World War II, we weren't doing that, and therefore we were able to digest the calcium in the milk. Parents will say to me, how do I get enough calcium if my child's not having milk? And I say, interesting. Why are you not asking me how your child's going to get enough manganese or enough iron or enough thiamine? We are very much controlled by the media and by the marketing campaigns that are out there. The cow's milk marketing campaign was the very best in all of mankind's history. What about the other nutrients? Cow's milk is just one food in thousands of foods that give us the nutrients that we need. So now I want to talk to you a little bit about cleansing children. So they're eating healthier, but you still need them to be detoxifying from the air, the water, even the treat foods that they have. They need to detoxify. How do you detoxify children? So by children, I'm meaning less than 10, because at 10, they can have systemic candida, which is caused from too much sugar or too much drugs. But prior to 10, how do we clean our children's bodies out? In the olden days, there was a great bowel consciousness. Everybody was very aware that when the children left the house, they needed to have their bowel movement. If they didn't have their bowel movement, the kids would be brought back into the house and they were given a healthy enema. Not an enema that's loaded with chemicals like we get in the drugstore now, but just a syringe with water, basically, and they brought on that bowel movement. Why did they do that? Because they knew if the body fills up with waste, the body will get sick. So we have to keep those bowel movements coming out, or my child's going to get sick. They also gave them cod liver oil, by the way. Remember that? They were always giving them cod liver oil, but that fell by the wayside as well. So now, back to the bowel movements. We want to see our children having a bowel movement every day. Every single day. If they miss the odd one, it's no big deal. But if they're going every other day on a regular basis, there's something to look into there. The number one way to help them have more bowel movements is to give them more good bacteria. The things that deplete good bacteria are drugs. So if the mother has drugs in labor, or the baby's given drugs when they're born, that depletes the body of good bacteria. If the mother has a C-section, the baby doesn't go through the vaginal tract and get all the good bacteria from mom, so they might be deficient in good bacteria that way. They might be swimming in chlorinated pools at 6 months old and getting all those chemicals that deplete the body of good bacteria. And vaccinations deplete the body of good bacteria. So there's all sorts of things that are part of our culture that are depleting the body of good bacteria. So if we are noticing they're not having enough bowel movements, we have to give them good bacteria. I like the make Innovite Health, but Innovite Health is actually killing Candida as well as helping with increasing the good bacteria. So it's very effective. And they make it for babies, and they make it for infants, and for toddlers, and they make it for adults. And there's even one for sensitive GI tract. It's even at the superstore in the refrigerated section of the health aisle. So start giving children probiotics when you see any symptoms at all, but particularly if they're not having enough bowel movements or large enough bowel movements, that can help right things. Another way in which we cleanse children is through exercise. So if they're walking regularly, if they're biking, if they're running, this cleanses their bodies. The sweating gets the toxins out of their body. Another way to cleanse children is to put them in a far infrared sauna if you have one or you have access to one. That's excellent for detoxifying. Another thing you can do is Epsom salt baths. There's a man that's going to be speaking right after me that I believe has the most healthy Epsom salts. Not all Epsom salts are the same. So you can buy Epsom salts at a drugstore and them not be as mineral rich as the Epsom salts that he offers, or that you can find at a health food store. And Epsom salts literally put vitamins and minerals into the child's body through the skin. We often don't think about the skin absorbing vitamins and minerals. We think we have to ingest them, but it actually gets absorbed through the skin and cleanses the body. So those are a lot of ideas for detoxifying children.